is literally the most deep-ass conversation. I love it. I could talk to you for a while.
Welcome to the Council of Dudes podcast. I'm your host, Vinny Brusco. I am a father, a husband, the founder of Agora Social Club, a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a certified life coach, and a facilitator of the Council of Dudes men's group. This podcast is here to help you tap into and follow your golden thread, that feeling that pulls you forward to become the best version of yourself. If you're someone who's into personal development and self-help and is looking to live a life of more alignment, then this is the podcast for you. Subscribe to the channel, click the notification button, and follow along on the journey of the show.
Hey, this is Heather Parady, and this is the Council of Dudes podcast.
And here we go.
Nothing will make two podcasters come together like technical issues.
Yeah, and it's always so weird because usually the first time, I meet somebody is on a podcast, and so it's like your first introductory to that person is like super stressful and awkward. And then you're like, hi.
You have no. So I do morning drop off with the kids. So yeah. I drop them off, get them out of that. I'm like, all right, we're good. We're gonna get to, set everything up at Agora. We're good. We'll set everything up. And then I get on the highway and it's just standstill traffic. Yeah. And that's where I emailed you. I was like, oh, here we go. But I've also learned that there's no sense in putting in that extra energy. Like I've learned to just, it is what it is. And not all the time. Like my initial reaction is like, right? And then after that, I'm like, it will just be whatever it is.
I'm in therapy and I'm doing somatic therapy, and it's all about regulating your nervous system and trying to keep your nervous system like in a calm state. And it's hilarious because since I've been doing that therapy, I realize like how jacked up I am all the time, just like and trying to calm that. To your point, like it doesn't matter, everything's fine. It's cool,
Yeah. I totally get that. I'm always jacked up. Actually, I was talking to my therapist. Let's talk about our therapist sessions. I talked to my therapist. I was like, I realize I'm never not going.
100%. Yeah.
Like I'm always, even when I'm not going, I'm going. Yeah. It's a real issue.
Well, it served us because it helped us survive whatever we needed to survive. And your body is still, I don't know you, but like for me, my body's still operating like I'm in survival mode. Yeah. 12-year-old Heather versus 39-year-old Heather who's safe and fine. But my body doesn't know that, even though my mind does.
Yeah, I did something called Healing the Father Wound. And it was like this reverse engineering of going back to that version of you that's frozen in time, that's still making decisions X amount of years later. So I'm happy to hear that you landed at 12. Good for you. You've landed on an age.
Oh no, man! I just made that up just now. It's like every age. It's like 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, mine's very general. I have like a general youth experience where I guess I'm just still operating from that space. Yeah. But it's important to keep in mind that everything is going to be fine. Everything's going to be okay. Yeah. I don't do a lot of research for these podcasts, very candidly. I like to go in as fresh as possible. But I did find out, and through obviously doing a little deep dive, that you are a therapist.
I was.
You were.
I gave up my license. So I'm not a licensed therapist, but a trained therapist.
So what was that? I mean, why the transition from being a therapist? Because that is I was going to school to become a mental health therapist, through some, red tape through New York and Arizona. It didn't work out. But that is not an easy thing to just give up on or to shift gears from. What was the shift for you? Second half of life, I might go back and reopen that door again. I've been thinking a lot about that, especially with what's going on in the world right now. I think I've got to figure out a way to incorporate media and content into that because I'm very passionate. I love the online space and the power of what we're doing right here. And so at the time, I know now that it's not true. At the time, I felt like I kind of needed to pick a lane, like either go into the digital marketing, business building space, or be in an office one-on-one with people every day. And I really wanted to build something
now I know you can do both of those, and there's some good, I have some ideas. So I might go back into it at some point. I don't know. But I do therapy every day, whether I'm licensed or not.
I was just gonna say, like, it's still like even podcasting, and there's that old joke, like, why don't guys go to therapists and host podcasts or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
The old meme. But there is something that is very, cathartic about sitting with someone in this setting where you can have an open, honest conversation, and it does peel back the layers of yourself as well.
That, and I also ironically work with a lot of therapists. So a huge chunk of my clients are in the healing space. And so it's like I'm helping them with their brands and their marketing and all of that. So I'm kind of in that space, but I end up walking them through the mental stuff of putting yourself out there on the internet is a very hard thing to do. So I do a lot of therapy with people on that, as you can imagine. Self-worth, self-doubt, perfectionism.
It all bubbles up. It all bubbles up when you put a camera on yourself and you start to try to put yourself out there. And it's funny because no matter what you do, I don't think you can overcome that. I think that is a part of intrinsically who we are, just self-doubt, imposter syndrome, all these things, they almost have to come up. Like you talk about Stephen Pressfield a lot, and I'm a huge fan of his work. And he talks about like the resistance, right? Like the idea that
we're recording. Are we doing this episode?
Oh yeah, we're going. There's no, I was going to do a formal introduction. I love that. This is even better.
I was sitting here and I was like, we probably get started. And then I was like, damn, we're recording. That's awesome. I love that. That's great.
Yeah, there's no, we just drop in. Wherever we come in, we come. That's it.
Great.
Right.
Great.
So Stephen Pressfield, who you've talked a lot about him and his work, which I'm a huge fan of. He does mention the resistance, right? Like there is this force that needs to come up, and whether that be self-doubt, imposter syndrome, however it's your spouse, however that shows up, it needs to be there.
It's a gift, and I hate saying that, but it is, because it's pointing to something, right? So and I'm not deep down this rabbit hole. I'm like starting down it, but thinking about like shadow work and darkness and that's role in our life. And a lot of the feelings that we have that we think we just need to like push away, like, oh man, I don't need to be insecure. Maybe that insecurity is like giving you information about stuff. And it's also grounding us, because without a little insecurity or self-doubt, there's not a check box or a check mark, I don't know, a check there of what place we're coming from. Because if I just came in, I'd be, not to make this political, but some of our leaders who people can't stand, are just like, there seems like there's no humility and no doubt. And so it grounds us as a human, I think.
Yeah, I think being humble is a really important thing, because it's almost like when you meet someone and they're too comfortable too quickly. Yeah. Like your senses all of a sudden start to tingling, like, there's something weird here, right? It's just and I think being humble is super powerful. But then that could also go, and I totally agree with you. I think, we as a culture, definitely, especially in this healing phase that we're in as a culture where health and wellness, mental health is at seemingly an all-time high, which is great. We also do suffocate some of the darker things, like, oh no, just put that aside, or, you have to, but I think there is, integration with that and incorporation with that, where you learn that part of yourself and you use it as fuel.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And also, if you think about your favorite creators, I would guess that they are a little messy and undone and imperfect, so that's like our connecting tissue. So I know I've done this too, or especially, the professionals I work with, they're great at what they do from a professional standpoint. They're used to having to defend their qualifications that they can help people. And so then you get on the internet and it's like, hey, let your hair down and be messy and be imperfect. That's really hard to let go of that. But also too, that is the connecting and sticky point for folks. So yeah.
If you build, you will come. point is, don't lose your dinosaur.
Yeah, it is. It is this common thread of being imperfect, right? There's the old expression, "Don't ever become perfect," because I'll have no one to relate to, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
it's important to recognize that in yourself and then in other people, right? And recognize that we're all flawed, and whatever someone's coming to the table with, it's due to all of those past years of
Mm-hmm.
experiences that they're showing up in this current moment.
Yeah.
When did you shift gears into, I mean, your content online, both short form and long form, is some of my favorite stuff to consume. Very genuinely, it really is.
Thank
And
you.
when did you kind of find your stride in that? Because for a lot of content creators, myself included, it's like, how do I show up in this space, being authentic? What am I leaning into? Who am I? It's like a whole shift of identity. So how did you
Yeah.
kind of make that journey?
Well, there's a tactical answer of like the tactical side of how I got into it. And then there's what I'm still wrestling with, which is what I think actually matters. And I'm going to have to figure out moving forward. From the tactical standpoint, I was really still am into Gary Vee that just says post every day, do whatever. And I've done that. I've put out a just shit ton of content and most of it sucks. And then seriously, it's really bad. You should go to my TikTok and scroll down to the bottom. It's humiliating. But then a couple years ago, I was getting frustrated and was like, I'm doing what Gary Vee says. I have a passion. I want to share a message, but it's just not landing with people. I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. And so as a punishment to myself, I was like, you're going to sit your ass in this chair and you're not going to make any other kind of video other than sitting in this chair until you figure out what you're trying to say. And so it was a creative restriction that I've since learned is really important in the creative process, that when you're all over the place and you're doing too many things, limiting yourself is actually the gateway into real creativity. So sitting in the chair a couple of years ago, I just started telling stories and making connections like I normally do. Because if you go have Mexican with me, I will do that in real life. I'll be like, this reminds me of this book and this reminds me of this interview I just heard. So it started working. So from a tactical standpoint, that's how I got into like the format and kind of the flow of what I'm doing. But the real answer, I think, behind your question is this pursuit of trying to figure out, what are you trying to say? What is the real message? What is the point of view that you have? And, we were talking about insecurity and self-doubt. I think this is where it really shows up, because you have to make a stand for something. And I'm not saying like a controversial stand, but you need to know what you were called to do and what you're trying to communicate. And that can change, but I'm still wrestling with that right now. And I think I'll continue to, of like, Heather, what is the point you're trying to make through, what's the through line through all of this? And are you being unapologetic and clear on that? Because getting followers, getting likes, all that stuff means nothing at all. It's like, are you actually making any kind of impact? And that's heavy. Like, there's some people who make impact through like their comedy. So I'm not saying it's always a heavy thing, but I just threw up all over you. But there's my
No,
answer.
it's fine. It's fine. I'm wearing a bib. There's a lot there to unpack though, because sitting with that, and you use the term wrestling, right? Which is such a perfect way to put it. Sitting with yourself in some form of isolation stirs up a whole lot of stuff, right? You interface with yourself in this whole new way, whether it be meditation, sensory deprivation, seemingly journaling to some degree, right? You get to see and view yourself from this completely different lens, change the relationship you have with yourself. And now from I want to create content around this, that is a very vulnerable place to be coming from.
Very.
So how do you mitigate the vulnerability versus the authenticity?
Unpack that a little bit more for me so I make sure I understand the question.
Yeah. So being vulnerable, right, is showing up in the world as your authentic self to some degree,
Correct.
right? But then there is this restraint of not being too much or still keeping a lid on certain things to not be socially necessarily accepted just because you don't want to open up Pandora's box for whatever reason on whatever category, right? So how do you navigate those two worlds? Say, I'm going to be authentic, but I'm not going to be too authentic.
That's literally the season I'm in right now of letting go of that question. I have always said, and I do believe that God put me on this earth to build bridges. I believe that. When I was growing up, I was friends with all the different types of people and could fit into just about any room. That's a blessing and it's a curse, because if it's easy to blend in, then what are you adding? But also it's a gift, because when you can keep one foot in one world and one in the other, you can be a bridge for like empathy and critical thought. But also with that in mind, I've been asking myself, how much am I using my calling to be a bridge builder and my desire to be a bridge builder as an excuse to not stand for something and be passive? And that's a very hard line, very, very hard line to try to figure out. So lately, I have been speaking up a lot more about controversial things that I believe in and sharing things. And I have pissed so many people off. And I've never gotten the amount of DMs that I've gotten over the past couple of weeks from, dude who knew me like 18 years ago, who's now like wanting to talk. And it's been way less hard than I thought it would be. I think the anticipation of rejection or hurting people's feelings or whatever is worse than actually sitting with it, because, and this is just what I pray for all the time, and again, I'm in therapy for it, I'm really working on, is being, even like right now, just like really grounded in my body and in myself and knowing that I'm safe. And so being vulnerable, sharing your unique point of view, it's okay if you hate me. It's okay. I mean, it might hurt my feelings a little bit, but that doesn't even mean anything about you. It doesn't mean anything about me. It's just this thing. It's this energy that's there that really has nothing to do with either one of us. It's tricky, man. I don't want to be controversial for the sake of being controversial, but I also don't want to be gray, mucky water when we need more leaders standing up and speaking out. I love your setup, by the way. I don't know if to change the subject, but that setup is sick.
Thank you very much. This is actually my space. It's a men's membership-based social club. So we do breath work, we do men's groups here, we do Bible think tanks, and it serves as a community space as well. So thank you very much.
Are you a Christian?
It's funny. Let's dive into that. I actually had I identify as Catholic. But so okay. I had the Monsignor from my church on the podcast just recently, and he says Christian. And I'm like, so do you identify as a Christian? Do you identify as a Catholic? Like, what do we do here? So I guess so. Sure. Christian. We'll go with Christian. But I become very friendly with we do a Bible think tank here with the pastor from the church. It's a Christian church right up the street. I don't know. I know I believe in God and I believe in Jesus, and these are all things that I care about, and they've been so impactful in my life. And whatever label Catholic, I go to Catholic church. I enjoy it. I was raised Catholic, but I don't know, whatever, Christian, Catholic.
I hate when people ask me if I'm a Christian. I just did that to you, so I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I think you just said Bible, so I was like, oh.
So but it's funny because it's like, because when you hear Christian, you automatically think like Christian, right? And I'm like, but it just means little Christ. So yeah, sure, I'm Christian or Catholic. I don't know. I wrestle with that.
I do. I always say to people when they say, "Are you a Christian?" I say, "What do you mean by Christian?"
Yeah, right, exactly. Exactly that. What does that mean?
Let's get clear on that.
Right. Well, let's get a foundation, and then we can build from there. But yeah, so we do a Bible think tank, and we do a bunch of other men's work stuff here. So thank you for the compliment. I'm working on taking compliments. Really cool. Thank you. You mentioned something about not caring, which I think is such a powerful tool to have, and such an important lens to have, but yet it's hard to get there, right? With likes and follows and thumbs up and, downloads and screen time and how long someone's watching. I mean, you can go down a rabbit hole of that alone, and that can really mess with any type of internal confidence or feeling good you may have. You could have a video go super duper viral and feel great, and then the next minute, the next video you post does nothing, and it completely deflates you in a lot of ways.
Yeah. It's only been, I would say, this past year and a half that I have gotten calmer and okay with some of the stuff people say to me. I mean, and it used to be to a point where I literally wouldn't be able to sleep if, which I've never had a lot of haters, but just people can be really, it's really interesting. And sometimes, especially this past year, I even question how many of these people are actually real. Are they manufactured? Are they bots? Because if that's a whole nother conversation.
No, I love it. Let's go down that rabbit hole. Is it altered states of reality real or bots
no,
in another country real?
It's really, I'm super weird. So let's start there.
Well,
so I'm about to say
weird.
Some crazy shit.
I love it. Okay. I'm all about it. Let's go.
Okay. So there is the side of generated chaos, from a tech perspective, where a lot of these comments and people aren't real people. They're bots. They're there just to whatever. You see that
everywhere, right?
Everywhere.
Both sides of the aisle, both sides of everything, right?
There's also another thing that I'm exploring, and I don't know, I might regret saying this on this podcast, but
I could always say that.
I've never talked about this publicly.
If you feel that way afterwards, let me know. I'll remove it. Go ahead.
No. I'm really into timelines right now.
Tell me more.
Multiple timelines.
Like quantum physics?
Yeah, and then multiple realities, where I'm not saying homeboy didn't yell at me, but also too, when I'm in a state where there's it's you kind of co-create your reality. And so how much of a lot of hate that's bothering me was manufactured by myself versus it actually being people responding to me. Yes, I know they're your face. Yes, no, I know that they're...
No, because I'm so with you on this. Go ahead.
Yes, I know that there are people, there was somebody who I knew at 20 years old who messaged me 2 days ago, pissed with a long message. I know she's real. I've seen her. There's also a lot of names and people who I don't know if they are AI or I don't know if they are a reflection of my own self-doubt and insecurity. Because here's what's interesting to me. And I've seen this with clients that I work with too, putting out content for the first time. Whenever we can identify and we understand what our core trauma and our wound is and some of our own insecurities, it's so interesting how that is reflected back through people's comments. And so it can be, I had this one person say that they were insecure about integrity. They want to make sure that everything that they do comes across with integrity. And so she said integrity all the time. When she started putting stuff out, guess all the feedback she got? They were questioning her integrity. In fact, they would say things back to her that she said in private that was her fear, almost verbatim. And I've noticed that with myself too. So I'm how much of this, not saying Johnny Boy isn't saying what he's saying, but isn't it interesting that they are all just a mirror of my own internal world? And if I want to change things, it's less about my actions to change Johnny Boy, what he thinks about me, and more about my own internal work of becoming settled and overcome, get okay with whatever that insecurity is. And I guarantee there's going to be less of that later, or I won't notice it. Maybe it's I don't notice it anymore. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
I'll stop there.
No, please don't. I know exactly what you're saying. It's like all of a sudden it goes the same way with let's call it positive things, right? Like the
Yeah.
serendipities, or I call them micro miracles now, right? All of a sudden when you're in this flow state, and keeping, I guess we'll call it the theme of Christianity, when you're in like a flow state of Christ consciousness, all of a sudden all of these things start to pop up in these amazing, miraculous ways that you almost can't even put into words. And I was actually talking to the pastor I was talking about, and I said to him, it's like you live in a reality that's more real than reality.
Yeah.
Right? And it can make you feel crazy. I was having a conversation yesterday with someone, and he brought up something that I've been wrestling with, right? Just this internal thing I've been wrestling with, and these thoughts and this stuff. And it was so not validating, because validating I feel like is like a little bit egoic, but it was like confirming that what I was thinking and feeling was accurate. And then he left, we were here, and I thought to myself, like, well, was that just another one of those things? Like, I keep on talking about Leonardo DiCaprio on Shutter Island. I'm like, am I Leonardo DiCaprio on Shutter Island right now? Like, have I, so I know exactly what you're talking about, but I do think it's more of where your channel's dialed into.
This is so exciting to me. Oh my God. I swear to sweet baby Jesus, this just happened. Somebody got really mad at me for saying that one time. I swear this just happened. I came home from an incredible trip last week, and it was one of those trips where I was in rooms I could not believe that I was in, and I was like, how did I get here? And I just internally, I was explaining it to my husband. I'm like, it's so interesting how God can just be like, and it's just your perspective in this tiny little shift. It's not huge, but it kind of shows you another reality and what could be. And so I said that to my husband just the other day. Yesterday to my therapist said to me, Heather, it's just like a little notch. You're going, and you're seeing a different reality. She said that to me, and you just said that to me. That's literally where I'm at. It's crazy. Something,
No, I know exactly. But it's what's even crazier is how quickly you will fall off that track. Like, I fell off that track. I was feeling it for like 2 weeks, and then I had a moment. And maybe it's a moment of clarity. Like, it's like all of a sudden the clarity of the situation, it didn't go away. It just went to like my peripheral. And all of a sudden I was like, oh wait, I'm not seeing it anymore. Like, I've lost the magic that I know is in existence at all times, at all places. And it's been like this scratching and clawing to try to rediscover it, which is such a journey in its own right? But I know it's there. It's just on the other side of the reality that I'm interfacing with.
Do you think it's present? That's I don't know the answer to this.
The magic?
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to think about. Like, what is it when you are tuned in and dialed into whatever that state is? And I know what you're talking about. I've been like, is it absolute presence? Like, everything else is an illusion. There's whatever space time we're in right now, but it's like whenever we can calm down our monkey minds and just really tune in to the now and the present. Like, that's what a lot of spiritual teachers talk about, is just the power of now in this moment. And it's like, whenever you can tune in directly to that, it's like, that's the dial. I'm asking you, what do you think? I was not ready for this deep ass conversation. This is amazing.
I'm glad. It's weird. It's weird because it was, like I said, it was about 2 weeks of living in an altered state of reality.
That's a long time.
It was 2 weeks. It was like, this is life. Like, I was like, it was amazing. And then I snapped out of it because I was having a conversation with someone. And I was like, am I like what I was projecting was, from the outside looking in, people might look at things and think chaos. but I'm in this flow state, Christ consciousness, whatever you want to call it, where I am so dialed in that everything is just flowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the sheer fact that I brought it up took me out of it. Yeah, it was almost like I mushed it. And the only thing I could relate this to, and I talk about it quite often on the podcast, is sensory deprivation. Are you familiar with sensory deprivation tanks? Okay.
Yeah.
So there is a John C. Lilly who invented the float tank, called this thing called the 0 point, which is essentially absolute consciousness. And I've experienced it. It was the most peaceful, joyful experience of my life. I was flowing between void and abundance. And I was explaining this to someone one time, and they're like, what about your wife? What about your kids? I'm like, they don't exist. You don't exist. You are a void.
Yeah.
You are nothing but pure consciousness. And the minute I realized that I was entering, or I was in this state of consciousness, I snapped out of it. It was like, and it was like for a hair of a second, but it felt like eternity.
How would you define Christ consciousness? What do you mean by that?
I think what I would have at one point called flow state, I think the next level to that is this level of Christ consciousness. It's this interwoven connectivity to all things. I mean, like not just like other people, but really seeing the signature of God on everything. And now just being able to realize that, honor that, and maybe it's just presence, honor that, and just immerse yourself, but understand that it's hard to wrap your head around it.
With that in mind.
I love that you've turned into a podcast.
Well, I don't know you, but I feel like you're just really looking for wrestling and good conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what you do when you're having coffee with somebody.
Cheers to that.
Here's what I've been wrestling with, and I'm not sure where I've landed, is with that in mind. If we think about Christ consciousness maybe being our goal or the optimal state or whatever, it's interesting to think about our role as communicators and leaders in that. I have a very big social justice bent to me, and I'm very passionate, and I was made that way for sure. And it's also interesting to think about how even that doesn't matter. And so it's almost this, I went to this, Rob Bell. I love him. I went to one of his event things, and there was this dude, and it was the best question I've ever heard in my entire life. And we were all stumped, and we all sat there in silence. And I still don't know the answer to this question. But he genuinely asked in the most pure way, what is the point?
Yeah. Well, you said it before when you said about like all of it's kind of seemingly pointless.
Yeah.
And to such a degree that you could, dare I say, everything is pointless.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that is a very hard thing to not only wrestle with, just to even think that you're pointless. This whole thing we're doing right now, everything that we feel, the business I'm doing, it's all seemingly pointless. It's pointless.
It is.
Yet,
and so
in the moment, there couldn't be something that's more important. It takes time away from my kids. It takes time away from my wife. Everything else that I'm doing, it which really does have real purpose and meaning, because I think about purpose, right, which is such a hard thing to wrestle with. Let's go there. I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, how do I want my kids to I really want my kids, when I die, I really want my kids to miss me. And not in like this really upsetting way, but I think about people that you lose, right? And it just, Jordan Peterson talks about this. He's like, oh, like in a week, your life is this. And then in 2 weeks, it like your kids are kind of like, not that they're over you, right? But they move on. Life goes on, right? Like it has to. It's just, it's built in. But I don't want them to miss me in the sense of like sadness and tears. But I want them to like just be like, man, my dad was fucking awesome. And I want them to carry that with them as they move forward.
Yeah.
So it's all pointless, yet it's not, right?
Yeah. So that's where my question comes in, and I don't know the answer to it. It's like, where does ambition and passion come into those? Because I feel like those are a reflection of an aspect of God, you know? So I don't know, maybe it goes back to the duality of it all and how we don't see the big picture, so we demonize the dark for the light, you know, and there is a world where, you know, I'm just going to classify like kind of the passion, ambition, the grit, whatever we do, you know, it seems like that could be the dark, and the other one is just like this blissful state of light, but both of them somehow work together as the whole. And I don't, there's some scripture, I forgot what it is, but something about the glory of kings to wrestle with things or something like that. I think there's I love not knowing the answers with you, and that's the beauty of it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we won't know until the day we die.
I think that also lends itself to content, more so podcasting for me, being a therapist, right? Psychology, philosophy. It's the unearthing of the unknown, right? It's just like even this conversation we kind of went into, I was like, I was in traffic and I'm trying to figure out the microphones and all shit. And then all of a sudden, like, you're having a conversation about like that we're having. And I think to me, that's part of that magic. For me, that's part of like the allure of all of this is this, even like my own religious journey, it's this idea of trying to intellectualize things in a way that is integrated into yourself, right? Because there's knowing things, right? The bubble test, like you could fill in C and get the answer right, but unless it's like internalized and you actually have this real understanding of it, it's a totally different answer.
Yeah. This is the best conversation I've had in a while.
Thank you. And you have a lot of them, so I'm very, I take that as a very big compliment. Thank you.
I do, but not a lot of folks want to go here. And I think, I'm just guessing, there's such a loss of control. You know, if we really tap into this, it's we realize how out of control we actually are, and how much of it is not dependent on us. And I don't know. Back to your point about purpose, I've been thinking a lot about calling, and growing up, I grew up evangelical Christian, very charismatic, Holy Spirit, tent revivals, speaking in tongues, laying my hand on your head and you're passing out, you know, that whole thing. And a big narrative with that was the calling of God on your life. And I believe deeply in calling. I don't know why, because logically I don't believe in it, but my body believes in it. Maybe it's trauma.
What do you elaborate on why and why not, like the calling aspect of it?
The calling.
Welcome to Agora Social Club, the Westchester's hub for guys to gather, connect, and unwind. In the last 6 years, I've been facilitating a men's group called the Council of Dudes. And within that 6 years, I realized that guys need a place where they can get together, connect, and build community. A place that's not the gym, that's not jujitsu, that's not the bar, but a place where guys can come with no ego and grow and develop together. So here we have our chess table. We're gonna be having monthly chess lessons and our Take a Book, Leave a Book library. Some of these I've read, some of these I haven't. Quantum physics to personal development to fiction. We also have our record player area. In the last few years, I've become very obsessed with jazz music. And if you don't know how to play vinyl, no big deal. It hooks up to your phone via Bluetooth. We have artwork from California to local artists. We have these small little work tables, so if you want to hang on the couch and get some work done, you can just come pop them open. And we also have our little workspace here with quotes from Muhammad Ali, Albert Einstein, Theodore Roosevelt. We also have our coffee bar, small fridge, and more quotes and artwork over the wall. Head on over to agorasocialclub.com, sign up for our free 7-day trial, and with that, you will get a key fob. Scan your key fob and you have access to this space from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. So if you're a guy in the Westchester area and you're looking to gather, connect, and unwind with like-minded men, head on over to agorasocialclub.com.
Aspect, well, I was taught that some people have a calling on their life, like a special calling or a certain calling. So you may, like when you're 12, the prophet comes up to you and is like, I see you before the nations, and you are a speaker, and you're this and you're that. And then sometimes the prophet would come up to you and be like, I see, you're called to your family, and you're going to be a mother, and blah, blah, blah. And I think I was drawn to that young at an early age, just because it's this idea that some of us are more special than other people, and I wanted to be more special, right? I never had a prophet tell me I was going to be, though, so I was always waiting for kind of that call out.
He was walking past you, like, me.
literally. And I used to get so frustrated because I'd see like these different prophecies over different people, and I never got a prophecy. And it was really heartbreaking to me, because I was like, God, because I wanted to be a minister my whole life. Like, that's what I wanted to do, was go into ministry. Stephen Pressfield talks about shadow careers, him or Julia Cameron, I can't remember. But therapy was actually a shadow career of my real calling, which I wanted to be in ministry. That was my thing.
It makes sense, though.
Yeah.
Right? It totally makes sense.
Yeah. But then when I started deconstructing and kind of rethinking everything I've learned, I've been really going back to this word calling and thinking through that, and remember thinking about how much really it was an ego thing for me. And it's not that some people are called and some people aren't. It's like we are all called, and some people do that tuning dial into whatever it is and get into a flow, and their life manifests in different ways, but there's not a level of importance there. And so there's like a self proclaimed, maybe it would be the word, importance. I think sometimes I try to put on myself, or I think we do as leaders, people who have personalities like you and I do, which are kind of strong. We're self-starters. We make things and put them out into the world. And so it's like wrestling with understanding we're not called to do great things and other people aren't, but also have a level of responsibility with however we're wired and using it to its fullness. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm trying to wrestle with. Like, I have the gift of communication. I do. And I can connect with people really well. So is that God's calling on my life to be a great communicator? Or is that my own self-importance? But then also, where do I squash the gift and not live up to my fullest potential because I'm worried about ego?
Yeah. No, I get it. I totally get it. And what comes up for me is and I'll go back to the sensory deprivation tank. I was in there one time, and so often it becomes like this buzzer beater insight where all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's like at the end, the lights come on and you're like, oh, time to get out. And then you have to take that into the world and take action on it. But I had one experience where I was wrapping up. It was felt like, it was coming to the end. And what came to me, what I felt, or what I heard actually, was be a soldier of God and unsheath your sword of greatness. And I got chills. And my response, of course, is like, yeah, but who am I to unsheath my sword of greatness? And it was like, but that's why you're here, right? Yeah. Like, you're here to unsheath, like, you're keeping your sword in your sheath because you're afraid or anything else, right? But yet, go and be this person that you're called to be, that you were put on this earth to be, the spark of God that is in you, that you are meant to bring to the world in these different ways. Go do that, because you're keeping everything that you're capable of in your sheath. And that's a very hard thing to be like, okay, I'm going to go on this journey. But those are the types of insights that I think, to your point earlier, is that people don't want. It's scary to hear that. It's scary to take on that responsibility. It's scary to think like, oh, I'm capable of more than just sitting in an office.
Yeah. Here's another interesting layer to that. Brian and I have been talking about, I don't have a word for it. I got to come up with a good word, but it's like this idea that you have this, let's call it like an energy field or cycle that you're in. It's like this reality, and you work, if you're doing the work and progressing and growing, you kind of level up in your goals to kind of bust out of whatever container that's in. So an example of that would be, which I did, grew up without an education and around people who weren't always the most mentally healthy for me. So I work really, really hard and I do the internal stuff and everything to one day I bust out of that and, I go to school and I finish my degrees and I bust out of that reality in that world. And that's cool and that's great. But then we kind of linger there and we stop. And what happens is we're at the beginning stages of a whole nother level and a whole nother world and a whole nother container. And so it's like this cyclical process of raising up to another energy field or plane or whatever, and then conquering it and being on top of it, but then being a beginner all over again and wrestling through those same beginner things. And so it's like we never fully arrive. It's like we're constantly, like right now I'm in the beginning stages of my next cycle. And I was telling you at the beginning of this, my body's still operating like I'm in the first cycle. And I've got to tune my body into this next one. And so within context of what we're talking about now, being great, you will only see the manifestation of greatness at certain points in whatever cycle you're in. And the other times you're going to feel weak and the beginner and ill qualified and all of that. And that is not a sign that you're not great and that you're not on the journey. It's just, it might be the beginning of another cycle.
I absolutely love it. Yeah, it absolutely does. I love every bit of that. And it's like, it's staircase. I call them staircases and landings, right? You climb a staircase, you get to a landing.
That's a better way. I like that.
You climb a staircase, you get to a landing, like, okay, we got to that staircase.
Yeah.
But you still have another staircase to go up, right? So you go up the next staircase, and some of them are wider, some of them are narrow, some are steeper, some are, right? They're all different staircases, but you get to the next landing, and now it's like, okay, now we have to go to the next staircase.
Yeah.
And it is that this reintroduction to a beginner's mindset. I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and so often, more times than not, I leave there and I go, I don't know anything. I've been doing it for 8 years. I have a purple belt. I don't know anything. And then every once in a while, I'll go and I'll leave and I go, oh, I do know some stuff. Look at that. Like I'm not a complete newbie at this, right? But I think it's important because you're inside the jar. You don't see your own growth. You don't see your own development. You don't see how you've changed and all these things because you're inside the jar. But once all of a sudden, and then you have the outside world that's like, oh, you're doing great. You're killing it. You're doing awesome. You're like, what the fuck are you seeing? We couldn't be any further off from the truth because your internal state, like exactly what you're saying, hasn't arrived into this next reality. And that's where like quantum leaps come in and alternate realities and all that stuff, which is a whole nother conversation we're going to have. But it's this weird wrestling with, I call it living in the delta, where you're no longer the person you once were, but you're not the person you see yourself being. And you're in this weird limbo state. And that's a very tough place to navigate.
Yeah. And then as, leaders, communicators, whatever you want to call us, people who start things and try to
finish them
on the ride. I don't know what we are. It's interesting because, we're usually meeting people in their journeys when they're running up that staircase and they're so exhausted and they're just fighting to get to that next step. And then when we come at, from like the personal development space, like motivation and greatness and all that stuff,
right.
It makes sense that from a cognitive standpoint is shunned away because it's like it doesn't match the reality that I'm seeing, even though they're exactly on that path. And so identity shifts are really interesting for me right now, thinking through how do we not only on an individual level, but like collectively start shifting our identities to see who we're called to be and who, to use your word, the greatness inside of us when it literally, if everything feels like it's burning to the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you personally navigate that area? Like, do you journal? Do you have any practices? I know you mentioned prayer, but are there any other practices that you engage with that give you that sense of clarity?
Therapy has been the most helpful thing for me lately. I've really lucked out with the lady that I'm with right now because she can reflect back to me a lot of the stuff that I don't see. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of reconnecting my relationship with God. It was really broken for several years with everything that went down with that. but back to, you know, what I was saying about reconnecting to my message and what I'm trying to say, there is no message without like the presence of God. There is no message without like a connection to source. That is the message. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
And so I don't think we're ever fully separated from God. I think that's an illusion, but tapping back into constant communication and tuning back into that dial has been a focus over this past year. Super imperfect, like not in a Christian way. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a very messy thing, but yeah, so therapy and trying to connect back to God.
Yeah. That's both of those things again are kind of peeling back the layers of yourself.
Yeah.
Which is so important. I think that's the reverse engineering of yourself is like one of the most powerful things you could do. You mentioned a bit before in regards to, you know, communicating with people and how people show up in your life. And, you know, the Four Agreements, classic book, but one of them that always stands out to me is not taking anything personal, right? Which is so hard to do, right? It's so easier said than done. But there is something about when the world starts to mirror back to you your own insecurities and mirrors back to you your blind spots. And it's so easy to wrestle with that in a sense of being like, fuck that person, they're wrong, screw them, right? I'm the right one. And then there's the other, like, then once all that kind of fizzles down, there's this unearthing of like, but there's something there that I need to like interface with and think about because it did pluck a nerve. And that's a whole nother layer to it.
One of the most important relationships in my life is a friend of mine who is a Republican, hardcore Republican, evangelical Christian who loves Donald Trump and is a salesman. And that's my best friend outside of my husband and my kids. And I'm saying that not to be political and bring that into here. I'm saying that to share that that's the most valuable friendship in my life because there's such a diverse thought and we've built a relationship that we can talk so honestly about our perspectives. And like when everything that went down last year, you know, it was heavy. But he and I, we have a standing call every week for 1 hour and he'd share where he's frustrated and concerned about what's going on in the world and I'll do the same. And I'm sharing that to say, not getting triggered, which we all do it. It really comes back to relationship and understanding the point of view, the world experience, the life experience, the unique situation of the source that is saying what they're saying. So instead of Heather sucks because she didn't vote for Donald Trump and she's a bad person and she wants all this, Glenn knows that I have a lot of core wounds around authority and church figures and people who abuse power because of stuff that happened to me. And so there's a lot of triggers there with that. And I know with my friend that he has so much responsibility and weight because of his family and his businesses and so forth. And so the economic stuff, I know the impact that's had on his life and the reason that he views things differently from that standpoint. So it's like we have to have like relationship and hear the other side from a human place. There has to be somewhere in our lives where we allow for that because it helps cushion all the other loud noises because you have a reference point of saying, I will never say like, people are like, oh, if you voted this way, unfollow me now. You know what I mean? That whole thing. How could I ever say that when I know my best friend voted that way? And even though I disagree with him, I know his heart. So I don't know your heart. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the key part of that is the conversation, right? Like we've lost the ability to have conversation and respect for someone else's right to think and feel differently. I could follow people on social media and I can go, oh, I don't agree with that. but I don't have to unfollow them. Like it's almost, but it's a very immature thing to think like, I have to stop unfollowing you because you like this person. It's like, grow up. Just, I can like things I like and you could like things you like. And I understand when it comes to politics or religion, that gets very, very heavy because because they identify so heavy in these things, which I understand. But at the same time, it would be like me saying like, oh, you're a bad person because you don't like sushi. Right? Because if you really bring it to that perspective of none of this shit's really important, it doesn't matter if you don't like sushi. I love sushi, and that's all good.
I genuinely hate sushi, so it's so funny that you...
It's top 3. I love sushi.
It's so gross.
You're a bad person or hanging up this phone call.
We've got to, as communicators, we have got to figure out how we collectively navigate the next few years, because division is here. It's just intensifying. And it's like back to what we said earlier. Stand for something and be bold and use your voice and have integrity with, what you speak out against. But also there has to be a yes and where we allow diversity of thought into our lives, because otherwise we stop growing and we're not going to see the other side of God. You hold another element of God that I've never met before, seen, or learned about, and vice versa. And the moment you and I stop communication, we stop that like understanding of another side of our Creator.
That is beautifully put. Yeah. And I know we're coming up on time, so
yeah, I could talk to you for a while.
That's a good way to end it. Let's end it on that.
This is literally the most deep ass conversation. I loved it. It's so much better than like, so tell me what you do for a living.
The water cooler conversation that happens sometimes is it can be exhausting. That is an energy suck in its own right. And that's, for sure. First off, thank you so much for doing this. And I'm so glad the conversation went where it went, and it was just awesome. If people don't know you, where can people connect with you? Where can they find out more? Where can they check out the podcast and all these wonderful things that you're doing?
Yeah, Heather Parady on Instagram. That's the best place. Send me a DM. I'd love to get to know you, especially if you disagree with me. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Unconventional Leaders is the show. So thank you for having me. I'll message you later. We got to stay in touch. This was great.
For sure. I really appreciate it. And thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you.